What's up, YouTube? It's Coach Cory. Today, we are going to go over the top 10 brawlers for solo showdown. All right, let's get into it. All right, so we're going over the top 10 brawlers for solo showdown. And I'm going to say this first and foremost, this ranking list is for trying to get your brawlers to 500 trophies. That is the overall goal, right? Is you want to get to the end game for this list. All right, so if your brawlers are below about 250 trophies where there's not much teaming, this list might not be that accurate. All right, so keep that in mind. This list is made with teaming in mind. That is going to be a big part of a factor in these rankings. All right, so first off, let's do some honorable mentions for brawlers that aren't quite going to make it in the top 10. It's going to be Ricochet, Bo, Tar, and Piper, all pretty decent in solo showdown, but in my opinion, they're not going to be in my top 10. Oh yeah, and if you want to see how I've ranked every single brawler for the top 10 for every single showdown map, I'll really quickly show that, but we're just going to go over the overall ranking for all the brawlers, and that's going to include how they compare on all the maps together. All right, so starting at number 10, it's going to be Colt. Colt to me is definitely a decent option in solo showdown. He works pretty well on most of the maps. He's not really going to be a great or one of the best options on any of the maps, but he's always going to be a pretty decent one. He works well regardless of the map. He can check bushes pretty decently. He has a long enough range to either attack far away enemies or keep his distance. He has an okay amount of health, not that great. That's definitely going to be his weakness, is his health, and his shots travel in a really narrow area, so he's not going to be able to hit multiple people at once. But he can team with a different variety of brawlers, and most importantly, he does a lot of damage fast, so he can get boxes really quickly, and on top of that, if there's any tank rushing down on him, he's still a decent ability to counter whoever is attacking him, or at the least make them think twice about it because he can deal that high amount of damage. But overall, Colt can team with a different variety of brawlers. His strength is definitely his high damage, but he doesn't have the highest amount of health. And at number 9, honestly, it's one of my favorite brawlers right now. It's Brock. Brock, to me, is a really good, well-rounded brawler. His weakness is definitely his health, but even as a low health brawler, his damage is so high that he's hard to underestimate. Combine that with his really, really long range and his ability to deal a lot of damage fast, even if you're in close range. He fires shots quickly, and they have they're pretty easy to hit, honestly. They're really big projectile. So if you're in close range, Brock fires 3 quick shots at you, auto aim, you're going to take a lot of damage, even if he's low elixir. So Brock, you don't want to underestimate too much, but also really important to Brock's strength is his super. His super is a very threatening super. If you see a Brock with super and he's not on your team, you're going to be careful because you don't want to take too much damage, and he can shoot that super over walls, which in Showdown, the ability to go over walls is a really big advantage, as obviously, and if you can attack them and they can't attack you, how is it not a big advantage, right? As you'll see later in the rankings. All right, at number 8, it's gonna be Nita. Nita is a really decent brawler in Showdown, in my opinion. I mean, Nita can scout bushes well, but the main strength with Nita is that Nita has a really high health. Also, Nita isn't the most threatening of brawlers, so Nita can team with a wide variety of brawlers. At the same time, Nita, with her really high health, isn't super afraid of teaming with people that normally you might not want to team with, like tanks or like Shelly, shotgunners in general. As a Nita, you might be able to team with them. You still have to be careful, but because you have that high health, it's not as risky as it would be with, saying, being a Colt and teaming with a tank. Overall, though, Nita has basically a lot of health, and additionally can attack over walls, but has that really fast reload, so can easily check the grass always, which is definitely key in Showdown. All right, at number 7, it's going to be Shelly. Now, Shelly to me is a really interesting brawler in Showdown. Part of the reason Shelly is this high in the ranking is the re-emergence of Mortis, in my opinion. Shelly is going to be that tank counter. Shelly's also going to be that Mortis counter. But Shelly is definitely a threatening brawler as a mid-range shotgunner. A lot of people might be afraid to team with a Shelly unless they also have a decent amount of health, who can deal with that Shelly. So you might find throwers and other people not want to team with Shelly, but at the same time, if there are a decent amount of Mortises, those throwers might want to be really careful with killing those Shellys too fast, because they want those Shellys to kill those Mortises for them. So now in the current meta, Shelly is rising up a little bit just as a counter pick. Shelly is definitely decent on any sort of the tankier maps where there's a lot of bushes, a lot of grass. Shelly can do pretty well on this map. Basically, the main weakness of Shelly is not always a lot of people want to team with Shelly. But otherwise, Shelly is a really strong overall brawler. Now at 6, it's going to be the legendary Spike. Spike is a really fun brawler to play. He can do a lot of damage. He does have a low amount of health, which is definitely his weakness, but Spike can team with a decent variety of brawlers because of his high ability to deal damage. Unless he's really low elixir, then he might have to be a little bit more careful. But he even has just a little bit of elixir, he can be really threatening to anyone who's not on his team. But Spike can basically team with any of the mid-health or low-health brawlers fairly easily, and that's really key. He can team with throwers, but if there's like 5 throwers, they still might turn on the Spike. So in that case, it's not the best, but it can definitely still work. Spike has the ability to team with a lot of different brawlers. He can attack over walls with his super. He can attack around walls, sort of, with his spikes in general. He's able to build up his super really easily in Showdown because of that chip ability. He technically has the longest range in the game if you count his spikes exploding. So that really allows him to build up his super really well. And Spikes ends up being a pretty well-rounded brawler, but his definite weakness is his low health, and he can get betrayed somewhat easily because of that. So you do have to be a little bit careful with Spike to keep your distance from other people. And make sure you have your super, and that way, at the least, you're going to make it really hard for them to stay alive after killing you if they try to. Alright, at number 5, it's going to be the other legendary. It's going to be Crow. Crow, to me, is a really well-rounded brawler in Showdown. He has the ability, honestly, to team with a lot of different brawlers. He can almost team with anything because of that really fast move speed that Crow has, on top of his super being able to escape away from people. His poison is really, really good in Showdown as it stops people from healing as they're running away, which happens a lot. And Showdown is such a big map, and you combine that with Crow's faster move speed, and he can just keep poisoning and poisoning people and making it so they can't run away. And so whatever team you're a part of, or if you're not on a team, you can just make it that person get easily cornered and other people will start attacking them. But Crow just works really decently overall. He's not going to be a super strong brawler, but he's really well-rounded. He can team with a lot, and he has a really good survival ability. He does have low health, but he has that really fast move speed and that super that allows him to survive. Alright, and now at number 4, look at how far this brawler has risen. It's gonna be Mortis. Mortis, honestly, I feel like he's had a re-emergence in Showdown. A lot of people are really getting angry at the amount of thrower teams happening in Showdown, and let's be honest, a team of 5 throwers is really hard to stop. So all of a sudden, you're seeing a lot more Mortis. And honestly, Mortis, when there's just one Mortis in Showdown, it's not that strong. But when you start having a couple Mortis in Showdown and they can start teaming together, it starts to be a really strong counter to thrower teams. And you're starting to see that a lot, especially on maps like Stormy Plains. You're now seeing a lot of Mortises, and now you're even starting to see the Mortis counter appear a lot more, like Shelly rising up just as a counter to Mortis because Mortis is becoming more popular. Mortis is definitely a really strong survival ability. He doesn't have the strongest teaming factor. Not a lot of people want to team with Mortis. He's not the most threatening, but he's not the best teammate really either. Mortis isn't really going to help you that much unless you're also a tank or something like that. But of course, Mortis has a really great ability to escape from any danger with his high move speed and his dash. But basically, he's a really survivable brawler who can also counter throwers, which is definitely becoming a big thing. All right, now we'll do these next 2 at once because, well, they're really similar. All right, at number 3, it's going to be Barley, and number 2, it's going to be Dynamite. Thrower teams are so strong in Showdown if you haven't noticed yet. Thrower teams can just be so hard to deal with. I mean, how do you approach a team of 3, 4, or 5 throwers just attacking you over walls where you can't, 1, you can't even start attacking them, and 2, there's just constant throw, constant attacks coming at you that you can't respond to. It's very hard to deal with. That's where you're seeing Mortis become a lot more in the meta to try and counter these thrower teams. And a lot of times you see all throwers team up together and they're just really, really hard to deal with. They go to either the center of the map, some area of the map where they can attack over walls and attack enemies, and they're very, very strong. It's hard for them to approach. Dynamite's super is really, really strong, really great at killing people. Barley's super not as much, but it's very threatening and it's going to push people in a different direction. Barley a little bit better versus Mortis. Dynamite with star power can still beat Mortis to some degree, but it's definitely difficult. Either way, I think Dynamite is a little bit better of a killer than Barley. That's where you're seeing Dynamite a little higher than Barley. Both of them are definitely really strong overall in Showdown. They don't necessarily have the highest survivability rate, but they are really strong offensively and in a defensive way as far as keeping enemies away from them. They can be definitely pretty hard to deal with, especially if they have super. You got to be really careful approaching them. And now at number 1, my best brawler in solo Showdown, it's gonna be Poco. Poco is really, really strong in general right now and also in solo Showdown for a couple different reasons. And honestly, the biggest one is everyone doesn't mind teaming with Poco. What's Poco gonna do? Hits you with 3 shots and you're down? Well, okay, if you're a really low health brawler, that's a big deal. But Poco isn't the most threatening of brawlers, and that's why everyone is just okay with teaming with Poco. And Poco is okay with almost teaming with everyone because Poco can have that heal, and Poco has a really high health. So Poco is just able to stay alive throughout the match really well. On top of that, Poco can deal with enemy teams pretty decently since Poco can hit multiple people. And if you can hit multiple people, you can start potentially causing betrayals. If other people on the enemy team get really low health, it might start causing betrayals on that team. And since Poco can hit multiple people, maybe Poco can deal a lot of damage to one brawler, Poco can deal a lot of overall damage, and that is really threatening. A lot of times on a team, if you take a decent amount of damage, you're just going to heal up because you don't want people to betray you. So that alone is a big threat, and Poco just has a really high survival rate just because Poco has a decent range, can attack over walls, a really high health, and can keep healing himself. Poco is weak to tanks, as once a tank gets in range of Poco, Poco's probably going down unless someone saves them somehow. But otherwise, Poco is just able to work well on almost every map, able to team really well with other people, and then at the end, if people are all attacking each other, Poco can hit multiple people and cause that end to come a little bit quicker while then healing himself and staying alive as people start killing each other. Poco is really strong in solo Showdown. Alright, well that's going to be my top 10 ranking for solo Showdown. Let me know what ones you agree with, disagree with down below, and also let me know what game mode you want me to do a top 10 ranking for next. Last time I did do a top 10 Brawl Ball ranking, so if you want to see that, you'll see it in a second. But that's going to be it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.